Hello everyone and welcome back to Recall Gaming, and this is the beginning of my new series called The Recall Files. And as you can see, we are starting on Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, and what I'll quickly show you is what we were planning to do, or what I did do rather, with this setup. So we did Metal Gear Solid 5 on Ground Zeroes, the main mission on hard difficulty, but as you can see I turned reflex mode off, just to give myself that extra challenge. I also turned off any kind of tagging, which is another very useful tool that helps you see enemies and you can track their movements. All very useful stuff. Great mechanics that they added to the series, but I'm turning them off because I wanted the ultimate challenge. And the kicker is, I wasn't going to allow myself to be caught or kill anybody, but I wasn't using the tranquilizer gun. So this was a real hardcore challenge, and this is not the first time I've done this challenge. I did it years and years ago, and I have to say that attempt went a lot better than this one. In this run I cut out all my fails, so it's just the pure stuff, not to show off how good I am, because I'll show the results screen at the end and you can see how many times I sort of got it wrong, but for a smoother viewing experience I've decided to do it that way, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this. Now, just to introduce the Recall Files, which I probably should have done this in reverse, but hey, I'm winging it. Recall Files is a series that I've started come up with the idea for, where I will pick, rather than doing a full playthrough like what I've been doing a lot of recently, I'm going to pick like one specific game, play through that, like one mission of it, for instance, like we are doing right here, with maybe a specific challenge. It's a very varied series. It's just going to be like maybe once a week, something different each time. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It allows me to do different games without fully committing to any kind of playthrough, because it's easy to get bogged down when you start doing something with like Uncharted or Brutal. You know, next thing you know, you have to be sort of committed to a series, and it's quite hard to then say, oh, you know what, I'm not fancying this, and I'm going to change the whole, you know, spectrum of what I'm doing, if that's the right phrase. There isn't a word that's coming to mind right now, but that's the one I'm going with. But yeah, and I thought we'd kick things off with quite a hard challenge, which I have to say, this certainly kicked my ass a bit. It went pretty smooth at the beginning. I can usually get to Chico alright, and then after that it gets a bit more tricky. But first of all, let's ask one of the obvious questions, maybe. Why are you doing Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes? Well, for starters, Metal Gear Solid is a series I massively love. I want to feature it a lot on this channel without overdoing it. I think I've done a pretty good job of that now. I've only done one Metal Gear Solid thing, and that was MGS1, where I attempted to do that game on normal difficulty without dying. I won't spoil how that went, but there is a handy YouTube playlist on my channel. Consider checking out that series. It's full live commentary through the whole thing. I think I allowed myself like 4 saves or something just in case of technical issues. I didn't want to do it in one go because I needed a good solid time slot to do that, and I'm not the kind of gamer who can just sit down and play for hours and hours. I find I have to do things in installments, depending on the game in question. But as I've gotten older, I found it harder and harder to do that. And speaking of getting older, the reason I've done Ground Zeroes as well is this whole channel is about going back. It's called Recall for a reason. This game is now 10 years old as of when this video comes out, which will be March 21st, 2014. And before you hound at me and say the game came out on March 18th, not for us in the UK. We ain't quite as lucky as some of you folks in Japan and America. So please don't rub it in. We had to actually wait a day extra in the UK, where I'm from, because Europe even got it a day before us. And this was before Brexit, so we were just cascaded, you know, long before that vote happened. But yeah, 2014, long before the words of Brexit were in the mind of the nation and the world. But yeah, Ground Zeroes was a game that caused a lot of controversy upon release, it had to be said. You know, most people agreed the game was fantastic, lots of fun to play, but a lot of people took issue with, well, the price. It was the price of the game. Of course, the main thing being that you only got this one main story mission. You did get some optional side ops, they were called, extra ops, which, you know, were a lot of fun to play. But the game retailed at about £25, I think. Was it £25? Which was seen as quite hefty. It probably wouldn't be an issue nowadays because we're having so much, you know, we're certainly getting a lot more railroaded as a consumer base of gamers. But Metal Gear Solid 5 is a game that seems to be in the public conscience a little bit due to the fact that Helldivers 2 has just come out as well, which, if you've not watched Metal Gear Solid before and you're looking at this, you might think some of the movement in certain points looks very familiar, and I have to say it certainly does seem that way. Obviously that isn't a stealth game, but it allows you to play co-op, I believe, Helldivers 2, which was one of the major things that this game got wrong. Well, more so the main game not having co-op, because Peace Walker had it and we all loved it in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Playing boss fights and main ops with a friend was a lot of fun, because you could do all main and side ops with a second player, and boss fights with 4. And there's rumoured that we're going to have a Metal Gear Solid Master Collection 2 coming out at some point, and I cannot wait for Peace Walker to be in it and to play with some buddies again and do some of them bosses again and really kick their asses all these years later. But in the meantime, before we get onto that, you can obviously marvel at my amazing gaming skills here. Not my commentary skills, I keep stuttering like a right moron here. But I'm going to leave that in. Leave that in. This is a low-key channel, we're not trying to make it massive just yet. But one of the things you've probably already noticed that I'm doing is holding up the enemies. The reason I've cut the tranquilizer gun out, a lot of people might be wondering why would you cut that out to people who aren't as familiar with the series. The tranquilizer gun was always this, this really minuscule weapon of goddamn mass destruction. The tranquilizer gun, when it was introduced in Metal Gear Solid 2, was a great addition because your primary goal in Metal Gear Solid is obviously avoid being seen, stealth game, pretty basic, and there was always that like secondary sort of goal of trying to obviously not kill enemies or interact with them. But Metal Gear Solid 2 introduced the tranquilizer gun, which kind of sliced through that challenge because you can just put enemies to sleep very easily with very little consequence. I mean, if you killed a guard in Metal Gear Solid 2 and they found his body, that would cause like a caution, sort of an alert basically, but you're not fully spotted, but obviously the enemies are aware something's going on because they found a dead body. But and just some jankiness there where I was trying to use the light, just to interrupt, I was trying to use the light, but Snake vaulted over like the dummy that he is. We'll blame that on all the rain that's surrounding him. It must have been a bit too slippery when wet. But as I was saying, the tranq gun, cut right through that challenge because enemies didn't cause an alert when they saw a tranquilized body; they just ignored it, which is always quite funny to me because they don't seem bothered that this guy's got some massive dart in his head, or potentially somewhere else on his body. Yeah. And so, but when you cut the tranquilizer gun out, you get some very interesting results in Metal Gear Solid, and I think it adds a lot of the fun back in. Well, not fun's probably the wrong word, it's still fun, but it adds a lot of that really raw challenge that the first game had. And just to sort of talk you through what I'm doing here, this prisoner is like a special extra prisoner that you can rescue for some extra points. It's worth doing if you're trying to get the S rank. It is going to cause you some issues later on because enemies will be looking for him. And one of the incredible things about this game is the fact that all these years later, and as I say, I already did this run years ago, and I thought when I did that run, I thought I nailed it. I thought, this is the optimum path. There's no other way of doing this challenge or doing this mission. And playing through it this time has just shattered all them preconceived notions because I think twice I ended up doing completely different ways of getting out, and it really opened my eyes once again that this game is fantastic in a lot of ways. I love Ground Zeroes a lot. And not to be all fanboy, but it just shows you that they put a lot of work into this one mission, and we can get into the whole Konami charging so much for it and Kojima and everything. But obviously when you remove that away as you do 10 years forward, people aren't talking about the price point so much anymore. It's not the first thing that comes into mind with this game. What you're left with is just the game, and this is the case for a lot of media and art. When you remove yourself from the initial release, what people are left with is the product itself, whether that be music, games, films, books, and what really matters is the quality, and this game is quality, and it still shines through 10 years later. Replaying this game is still worth your time, because it can just unfold in so many different ways, even now. The first thing I did, or the first thing I wanted to do when I finished this, was do it again, and do it better. And not many games can give me that feeling, but there's something about this raw challenge that I love. And I just sort of interrupted my whole tranquilizer gun thing there, but essentially removing the tranq gun did that. If I was playing with the tranq gun, this would be a doddle. I could probably run through it in about 15-20 minutes. And that would probably be the whole problem, is that this whole game, you could, I think a speedrunner did it in about, was it 4 minutes? 6 minutes? A speedrunner did it about a day after the game come out. And when you're IGN or GameSpot, that's a beautiful headline to, beat people with a stick. If you want engagement on Twitter, on your website, what a perfect... It's not really clickbait because it's true, but it's a perfect headline to run with if you want to spin a certain narrative, which they obviously did, as all media outlets do, gaming and otherwise. And that was unfortunate. This game got a really bad rap, and deservedly so for the price point. It was a bit of a joke. I'd have to re-look at that because I genuinely can't remember what the charge for this game. I think it was £25. But what I do remember is it came out on a Friday in the UK, and I used to do a martial arts class at 6:30. I think I started. I think I started at 6:30. Really stretching my memory here. And I got home from school at about 3:30, and I'd already finished the game before I got to karate. It took me about 54 minutes first try. It actually took me longer doing this with the challenge, so you can still extend your game time. Because I remember a lot of media outlets were saying it takes you 90 minutes to do the main mission, and you thought that is just typical video game journalism. Nobody's stuck on this for 90 minutes on the first try. I think even the worst, most incompetent Metal Gear player or just general gamer is getting through this in 70 tops, because it really isn't that long. You get some interesting results just to break away quickly. This was one of those beautiful moments where, because I'd called in the chopper and it caused enemies to run away, that guy got off the guard tower and made my life a lot easier. And this would happen again later in the run, where, for some reason, the alert status caused enemies to abandon their posts. I'm not sure that's a good military tactic, but it worked out well for me because this allowed me to sneak through. Because I remember playing this years ago, and I think I waited for this enemy to come all the way back, go up the tower, then hold him up. But it just shows you can play this in so many different ways. It really was the perfect challenge to pick for the Recall Files. Quite a change from Star Wars Battlefront that I've been playing recently, which, again, another plug. Please check out that series. That's running on the channel. Lots of Star Wars Battlefront, and I'm mainly sort of playing this to get that out of the system. I've made a desire. I don't want to become a Star Wars Battlefront channel, but there's going to be a lot of videos on it because there's a lot to cover. But if there's anything you can think of with the Recall Files, please let me know. I'm thinking Wolfenstein, maybe a few levels of Wolfenstein. Probably going to avoid Call of Duty because we've done a lot of Call of Duty, and what more can we really do at this point? Probably Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, maybe, because I didn't cover that all in the 20 years Call of Duty segment. So maybe we could do something with that. Hard to say at this point, really, so we'll have to look into that. But yeah, leave me any suggestions if you've got anything in mind. Maybe we do something on Uncharted. I don't know, maybe try and do something on Crushing, but with a bit of a challenge. Maybe we could have some fun with that. I've already done something on Uncharted 2 years and years ago. Again, check out the channel. Did the whole game with the trank gun. That was a lot of fun. Well, not the whole game. Slight caveat with that. There were some parts which I just couldn't do with the trank gun, unfortunately. So obviously I feel like it's worth mentioning now, but obviously I'm doing this post-commentary. I was tempted to do it live commentary, but I thought it would just be a bit too tricky. You know, this is a challenge that required a lot of thought process when I was playing it. I'm not good enough at Metal Gear Solid 5 to just say, right, I'm going to do the whole thing, you know, off the cuff, so to speak. So I thought best take my time with it, and we'll do post-commentary, because I think if I had tried to do it live, we'd have doubled the amount of fails that I had on it. So I think I definitely made the right call with that, fortunately. But everything's pretty smooth, the opening 20 minutes or so. I'm going to speed up one section, because I wanted to get all the prisoners out. That was another challenge that I wanted to add. So we do manage to do that. But obviously that it can be quite tiresome, picking up every prisoner, dragging them to the spot, and then calling in the chopper. Obviously we don't have the Fulton system in Ground Zeroes, because this was very much meant to be a teaser. I mean, going back to that whole price point controversy, I think the main problem people had is it was hard not to look at it and think, had this game come out in like 1998 to 2010 maybe a bit earlier, it would have just been a demo. You know, it really would have been. It certainly would have been a lot cheaper. For what it's worth, I always thought they should have made Ground Zeroes as this playable. They should have remade the Grozny Grad section off MGS3, which was like the big Russian military base, and let you play around in that in an open world, similar to this, a similar, you know, open map, shall we say, rather than making a whole new game. And I think people would have been able to swallow that pill a little bit more, but that would have required a lot of extra work that would have been probably meaningless. Having said that, we're getting a remake of MGS3, so maybe that could have paid some dividends. I still don't know where I stand on the MGS3 remake. It's my favourite game of all time. I'm not feeling the love-in of needing a remake of it. I think it holds up really well, and I'm just so worried they're going to get it wrong. But that might come out this year, so we might have to cover that on the channel. And talk about a stroke of luck, because I was really panicking on how to deal with this guy, and thankfully he presented the solution to me by coming all the way over, as Snake has some glorious moments of clipping through the roof here. And then I got stuck on this, and I couldn't get down, and I started panicking, because I knew if he didn't get, if I didn't get to him quickly enough, he would have got him up. But thankfully, I caught him napping, caught him lacking even. Now, take note of where this guy goes down, because we're going to come back later, and he's magically moved. Let's see here. Oh, maybe that is that how it goes? I'm sure I get him to lie down. So there we go. Make a mental note of where those two are, because they're not going to be there much longer. We're going to see a few glitches actually in this this run. Yeah, you'll definitely see some. I'm trying to think if I had to cut them out because I would have failed, but no, some glitches will be in. So we're going to show a lot of glitches here. And there's Chico, that's the prisoner that we're looking for, but there's lots of optional prisoners in here as well. And that's one of my coolest animations there, where Snake, you can sort of do a jump, immediately land prone and start rolling. Feels very awesome, very action movie, which is Kojima's absolute love, biggest love in the world. But yeah, let's get to Chico. Or not get to Chico, sorry, we've got to get rid of this guy by the gate first, before we do anything else. But as I was speaking about Groznygrad there, Metal Gear Solid 3, the latest thing that's come out with the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake has to be the loading screen, of all things, which seems to have caused, like, oddly enough, a positive reaction. I didn't know people were so bothered for loading screens, but people are liking it because it's just like, it's official, it's basically just a shot of the jungle. I'm sure people who are real experts of all the names of those places will be able to tell you which place it is in the game, but the first thing I thought when I saw it was, that looks just like Resident Evil remakes, the recent ones 2, 3 and 4, where they would show like a part of the city, on Resident Evil 4's case a bit of the village, so they've obviously definitely looked at that. I mean, you can guarantee, I mean, Resident Evil is very much behind this recent trend of remaking games, which I've got a mixed reaction to that. I thought it was really cool when they did the second one. It was a big, well, it wasn't a surprise because they talked about it for years, and by all accounts it wasn't going too well, because they mentioned it in 2017 that they were doing it, and we just heard nothing, and all of a sudden, bang, it was out. And just to break off this tangent very quickly, this is going to be sped up this next bit, just due to the fact that this whole thing here, it's very tedious taking these prisoners out and setting them down here, and I thought, you don't need to watch me and make the video even longer by me showing all this. You know what I'm doing, taking the prisoners over. We don't have the Fulton mechanic, that's not in Ground Zeroes, it's in the main game. It's a real miss here, but they're trying to show the game without it. As I say, it's meant to be a demo, a teaser. What this does remind me of, though, is the Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, which was obviously on the PSP, which was a lot of fun, a really underrated Metal Gear Solid game. Not one that Kojima made himself, you see. There was a lot of fun. You had to drag, though, every enemy to recruit them back to a truck on the map, and the maps were never big, but dragging enemies back was just such a massive pain. But yeah, these fast forward bit here will be coming to an end, and we're going to get to getting Chico out. But just to quickly wrap up the Resident Evil point I was making. Resident Evil 2 Remake come out. It was unbelievably successful, very good game. I bought it at release on the back of a demo, funnily enough, which shows there's some merit to demos. Resident Evil 3 come out far too early as a remake, only a year after. It was a bit of a disaster, unfortunately, because they missed a lot out. It was still a really enjoyable game, and it was great to play as Jill Valentine again, my personal favourite Resident Evil character. It was great to play as Jill again. Then they did the fourth one. I wasn't on board with remaking Resident Evil 4 because, to me, Resident Evil 4 is perfect. Oh, look at this! How has that guard got there? We did not leave him there. I had to, like... I'm glad I recorded this, because I was like, how he's like crawled up there or something, I don't know. I think he made like a noise or something at one point, but... Yeah, as I say, just to go back though, Resident Evil 4. I think, yeah, I go check on this guy, because I'm like, has he moved? No, he's still there. So... Very kind of him to stay there. Yeah, a lot of people argue that the hold-up mechanic's a bit overpowered, but you still got to get in close to do it, so I don't think it's overpowered. But Resident Evil 4 Remake, everybody's loved in the world except me, because I just love that original, it's too good. And what I will say is credit to Capcom for at least making sure we can play the original. I don't mind a remake if I've still got good access to the original. I'm on board with that, so Konami's kind of falling under the same boat. I don't want to praise them too much, because it's still Konami. Did a lot of fucked up shit years ago. But there you go. Now, that was a little edit you just saw there. Getting Chico out was so difficult. I actually failed it twice, I think, here. Two fails here. Got spotted. And I always, whenever I've done this challenge, I've always got Chico out to where the objective marker is, which is behind Snake at the minute, that little gold circle. Gold circle? It's a square, isn't it? Gold square. and it wasn't working. I couldn't get it to work. Years ago, I went that way, it worked. And I thought to myself, well, this can't be right. And I was thinking, the game's telling me I've got to go there, but do I have to? Because I can call in a chopper at any point. And I got this grand idea of going back the way I came, because I know that's clear. Even though there's been a big shift change. Now, there are two major shift changes in this level. One is getting Chico, the other's getting Paz, funnily enough. And I thought, well, if I just hold my horses and try this way, maybe I can get Chico out the other way. And turns out it worked a treat, and that's what I mean. Discovering secrets in a game that's 10 years old and is only one level is so awesome. And as I say, when you remove all the price point BS, which is very valid BS, shall I say, there's still an amazing game here. And honestly, you can get this thing dirt cheap, and if you haven't played it, treat yourself, because you don't have the problem of the price point now. You know, you can probably pick this game up for a $5, that, you know, probably in dollars and pounds, and euros if you're from Europe, or wherever you are blessed to be hailed from. But yeah, this game's got so much to discover, and as I say, doing this blew my mind. Now, there is one major disadvantage to doing this. I couldn't get on a truck behind... There's a truck that is scripted to go to the front gate. You'll actually see the subtitles, because they radio it in, and it's a truck down there. I think it's already gone. So I looked behind me thinking, oh shit, the truck's gone. That's not going to be good, because my whole plan is always get Chico out, get on the truck, get straight into the base. Thankfully, you can still get in. In fact, I think this might be easier. As I say, I'm tempted to try this run again and do it that way. But as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, I can call the chopper in, so let's just do that. And you can almost see like the light bulb in my head going as it's happening. If I'd left in all the footage, all my fails, you'd have slowly been able to sort of visually see me work it out in the way I was playing. But yeah, my mind was just racing. I was absolutely loving it. And I'm more determined to just try it again, but for this recall files idea that I'm going to do, Ground Zeroes is kind of perfect, because there's a few ops. I'm probably going to cover each and every single one of them, because it'll probably end up turning into a bit of a playthrough, which wasn't the intention, but I'm finding the real joy in Ground Zeroes. And I think the major problem with Phantom Pain was not having enough maps like this. A lot of Phantom Pain's maps are just out in the desert in Afghanistan, and a lot of them are quite cool. That's probably a bit kind. A lot of them there's some really good maps in there and some good stealth challenges, but we needed more industrial stuff for me. It's really fun doing these bases because it's a real throwback to MGS 1 and 2, and ever since MGS 3 they've really stuck. Kojima's really stuck to this whole doing a jungle area. I just think it's awesome in the third one, but there's something to be said for sneaking in a base, you know, a military base like this. It really is the whole vibe that I think we really fundamentally fell in love with MGS 1 back in the day. We all loved MGS 3, but he's kind of committed to that open area a bit too much for me. But it's Kojima's game, it's not mine, so he's not going to give a toss, is he? But it's something he's obviously committed to. And I mean, this is just a one part that's coming to an end here, so I won't get into a whole discussion about Death Stranding. But he's obviously carried that over into Death Stranding, which is a game I actually have a lot of time for. Might be in a minority there. But just as we come to the end here, just to sort of wrap up this first episode of Recall Files, which I hope you've really enjoyed. Part 2 will be up very shortly after this, where we finish this level. Ground Zeroes is certainly going to feature a lot because it's just set up perfectly. I don't know what game I'm going to cover next. Like, a part in my head was like, should we do a teaser for next episode? I probably won't do that because it's going to be spur of the moment. It's just going to be a random content, you know, once a week probably. If it's a multiple part for one mission, then they'll be up pretty close to each other. It won't take a whole week for the next one. It's just to get some variety in content, so it's not just Star Wars Battlefront all the time, or Uncharted. You know, it's something different, just to take your mind away from things. Hopefully enjoyable listening to my commentary. The plan isn't for them all to be post-commentary, it's meant to be a bit more light-hearted. I just found that this was such a hard challenge that I decided to do. I couldn't live commentate, I just didn't have the skill to do both. If I'd done a practice run like this and then tried it a second time, maybe I could have done it, But yeah, this cutscene, I've never seen this cutscene from this angle. I know I skip it, but it just shows you that a lot thought went into this game. They put a lot of heart and soul into it. And I had to turn the tape off. I had to make sure the tape wasn't... that I didn't have helicopter music set, because I didn't want to get hit by a copyright strike. And I think what's quite funny is when the chopper leaves, they actually see it and start shooting, and you think, surely that's an alert. Do these Americans really not care that there's an unmarked chopper just flying about? But hey, I guess they didn't care. They just carry on as normal. But we're coming to the end, guys. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Recall Files. Hopefully this is a very successful series. I'll see you guys for part 2, hopefully.